Well, again, another superb performance, right? And to differentiate Arsenal, we have to get away from the tribalism of it all, right? Because there's so many of people that are not Arsenal supporters that will, go back to the character and all that. I think they've answered that. They'll probably say, well, it's early. Let's see what they do in February, March, and April when they usually fall apart, right? But when you look at that team and you look at the team that's absolutely hungry, obviously, to win that trophy, to finish finally this process that Mikel Arteta was talking about. Superb defensively, great on set pieces, and most of it all, what do they have? Right? I mean, they have what Manchester City and Liverpool did at their best. I've mentioned some of the things, but just look at the makeup of that team. I mean, the fact that they're great defensively, that reminds me of the best Manchester City teams and Liverpool teams. They didn't concede anything, right? If you look at the midfield, we used to talk about the spine of Arsenal and maybe say, well, they were missing players here and there. I mean, if you look at Arsenal's midfield and compare it to that of Manchester City or Liverpool, I mean, those two teams don't even come close to that. And we can talk about Rodri, we can talk about Fernandinho before that, we can talk about Ilkay Gundogan, right? They're great players. We can talk about last season, Gravenberch and McAllister. Great, nothing against them. But you look at this here and Declan Rice, what he does on both sides of the ball and on set pieces, right? You look at Zubamendi. I mean, I'm not going to even mention Odegaard because I don't think he comes into the lineup as a guaranteed starter, right? You look at Ez already, slowly but surely making a massive impact as well. And so you look at that, it's superb. We never talk about goalkeeper Raya because, yeah, Raya, like, you always try to find faults in him, but he's been absolutely tremendous. Don't even want to mention Calafiori, who's truly becoming a great player. On the other side, in Urian Timber, I mean, you kidding me? I mean, that's one of the premier right backs in the game right now, at least in the Premier League. That's for sure. And then you go forward, right? And you think Gyökeres, yeah, it doesn't look like much, but he's continued to score, even putting, the goals half a yard away. And funny enough, the depth of squad is such that, we need more time here because if I look at the players that were missing today, they're big names. They weren't missed. They're not being missed, right? If you look at Odegaard, I've mentioned. If you look at Madueke, who else is missing there? What about Kai Havertz when he comes back? What about Gabriel Jesus? I promise you, as I sit here. By the way, I am not an Arsenal fan, but I'm trying not to be biased. If you look at Gabriel Jesus, he's going to score in one or two or three important games off the bench. He may not be here next season, whatever the case, but Havertz, Madueke, and Gabriel Jesus will contribute where needed. At this moment, they're not needed. They're massive names. So looking at all of that, you say to yourself, if not now, when? What is it? What is it that's missing from Mikel Arteta's squad? And at this point, I see absolutely nothing. Routinely winning games, 3 goals conceded in the Premier League, 3 games, 3 wins in the Champions League, 8 goals scored, none conceded. League Cup didn't concede. So you're looking at that team, and this is no coincidence. A superb team at the moment. As I've mentioned, because of the squad, some of these key players that are out are going to be coming back. The competition for places is going to be fierce, and that's usually good. Although that's one thing, right? We often wonder, how does Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Arne Slot, how do they do it? So many players, surely they're unhappy. And although both of them have done it, there's no indication that Mikel Arteta is not capable of doing that. But I suspect there's always a time where maybe, just maybe, something happens in the dressing room that has little to do with what's happening on the pitch, but just egos. I don't see it. I don't think that Mikel Arteta suffer fools in terms of that, right? He's one of those. At least he comes across in a way that if it does happen, he's going to say, have an impact and tell these players that this is for the good of the team, and it truly is. I think everybody will understand it because Arsenal are so desperate for a major trophy that I think that at this moment it's very, very hard to see Arsenal slowing down. For a short period of time, I don't think so. I mean, I suppose it would be, a valid question if we knew that somehow this was a long-term injury, if it's one at all. We don't know. I mean, let's not forget it's Slavia Prague in the Champions League away, and then another away game in the Premier League at the end of the week. So it's a long week. Maybe he was just rested, but I think if you look at Arsenal, a they're sort of used to playing without a striker. Even if you look at Jokeres, he plays a big part, even if he doesn't score, I suppose. But it's not the sort of striker that we expected. I think we all thought that it's going to be goals, bang, 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 coming in and out, right? They're slowly coming here and there, but it's not like you can say he's been absolutely unbelievable. But the flip side to that question would be what happens if he starts scoring the way he was scoring at Sporting Lisbon. So I think they can deal with that in the short term. As we sit here right after the game, we don't know if that substitution was tactical because of the 3 games within a week before the international break, or was it something slight? But it didn't look to me like it was a longer term injury. Watching him on the bench, sitting there, smiling from time to time. An absolute leader. The days that we've talked about Patrick Vieira and the need for a replacement for him at Arsenal, right? Year after year and after year. I think we've extended Patrick Vieira's career by talking about him missing Arsenal, not having a player like that. And again, I'm not comparing him, skill for skill here because they're slightly different. But in what they do in terms of leadership, what they do game in and game out, 2 sets of longs, 2 sets of heart for Declan Rice. The set pieces, I mean, people knock Arsenal for set pieces, which is absolutely crazy for me in a way because there's no magic to it. Everybody can do it. Matter of fact, you and I will talk about Manchester United. They've scored one and a half, if you will, or last game. Casemiro's got two goals from set pieces right now. There's no magic to it. It's just who wants it a little bit more. And the most important thing coming back to Declan Rice is delivery, right? In a game where great footballers who make tons and tons of money, can't even clear the first man on a corner. You look at Declan Rice, who basically is 99.9% perfect in terms of delivery. Everyone is dangerous. So it's training. Everyone can do it. And Arsenal show with the second goal that they are absolutely fully capable of playing different ways, right? Because there's been talk a little bit, right? Boring Arsenal 1-0 to the, which I found nonsensical as well. I mean, they can't help it. They're that good where most teams sit back and very, very deep. And as we all know, everybody struggles with that. I mentioned Manchester City and Liverpool in the years past. They've had games like that. But boring, they're not, because in the second game, if given a chance in transition on a counter, I mean, that second goal, please. I mean, it was absolutely superb, something that we've seen Arsenal do it over decades, by the way, not just this season.